Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening. We are apprehensive to say it's our last time making one of these because of funding. It's super expensive to get the programming and the rights and all that stuff. So this week we're going to stop after this one, and then next week we'll resume as normal. So
we're putting up a lemonade stand, hoping to get enough funds to continue with the third episode.
And it's snowing where we are, so
it's going to be a tough sell.
It's going to be a tough sell. It's going to be iced lemonade, but no one wants an iced drink on a cold day. So actually reminds me of the story we're going to be telling this week. It goes a little bit like this. Once upon a time, in the city of Philadelphia, 1998, there was a young man, up-and-coming whippersnapper with a yuppie skuppy look and a ragtime step. All the time, he walked around and said, "Today's the day." Every morning he'd say, "Today's the day." And his mom heard him say it once, and she said, "What do you mean today's the day?" And he said, "Mom, shut up." And he kept going. So he...
Kids these days.
I know. Well, it was 20 years ago. And so, wow, 20 years ago. Holy crap. Anyway, 98. So
I had the same realization.
Wow, that's so weird. So anyway, he goes to school. He goes up and he says, "Teach, today's the day." And she says, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Don't you worry your pretty little face." And she says, "Thanks, you too." And he said, "I'm a handsome man, not a pretty little face woman." And she said, "Well, you are going to get a detention now." So he said,
Wait.
"I said so. Today's the day." And
today's the day he was going to get a detention?
I guess that was the day. He just knows every day there's something that's going to happen to him. And so he gets in detention after school, and, he didn't have a cell phone. So he called his mom on the school phone and said, "Hey, Ma, I'm coming home later today because I got detention." And she goes, "Oh, why do you do these things? You foolish boy." And he says, "Shut up, Mom." And then she was like, "Don't you talk to me like that." And she started foaming at the mouth.
What's going on?
And
the
so
other end
the
of the
phone,
line?
listen, so the phone drops.
Yeah.
And he just hears, he's like, "What the heck's going on?" And he hears and he's listening. And he goes, he hears things ripping and pots and pans falling over. And he just hears all these noises. And he's getting quite scared because he thinks she's having like a heart attack or a seizure or something. So he goes home that night after detention, and he opens the door. And he opens the door slowly because he's a little scared. He doesn't hear anything, but he sees his mom's car there, and he's like, "Oh no!"
Wait, in the house?
No, he sees mom's car outside. So he goes.
Okay.
He goes up and he opens the door and he steps in, and he looks in the kitchen, and there's blood and there's hair. Not too much blood, not like a screwed, disgusting amount, but like, there's some blood smeared on
Just a little
on the counters and on the cabinets. And so he's looking around, and he sees his mom's clothes on the ground. And he's like, "What in the world is going on?" He looks around and he's like, "Man, where did all the bananas go? We had a bunch of bananas today."
That was the first thing you noticed?
Yeah, because there's this huge thing of bananas in the kitchen. And every morning his mom would say, "Honey, don't forget to take your banana." And he'd say, "Shut up, Mom. Today's the day." And it was just
He has complete disregard for his mother.
he that's what happens when your dad leaves.
That's a whole other side of this story we don't know anything about.
No, it does. That's the story for next time.
Oh.
He's quite the disrespectful young man because he didn't have any discipline. He's quite the bad boy. I mean, he tries. He dresses up like a yippy skippy nippy, but he's quite the jerk. So he's like, "Wow, where's all the bananas? This is nuts." And he picks up a package of nuts and says, "Wow, I got to eat these later." And then he puts them in his pocket. And then he's like, "All right, now I got to find my mom because I know that if I don't find her, I'm not going to have any dinner. And if I don't have dinner, then I go crazy mad. I get real ticked off at everything."
But he's got a whole bunch of bananas there.
No, they're not there. Remember, they were gone.
Oh, right, they're gone.
They're gone. And he goes, "Where the heck are my bananas? Get over here, Mom. I'm going to fix your wagon." And so he's like,
Wow.
"There's blood." He's kind of concerned, but he's trying to play it off.
Sure doesn't sound like it.
No, he doesn't sound like it. He never
Who's he
sounds
playing
like
it off towards? He's just by himself.
He's got all these characters in his head that he tries to live up to. Because in his childhood, he's an only child, and it's just him and his mom in this big white house. And, he's quite lonely. And so he makes up these people in his head. So he pretends like people are always watching him, which is weird.
Are you sure this isn't a schizophrenic?
No, he's just lonely. So anyway, he gets up and he says, "Today's the day. I'm going to find my mom and I'm going to make her make me dinner because I'm hungry." He goes and looks around, and he goes and looks for clues. He finds out that the window is open. He says, "This is really weird. My mom never leaves the window open." And so he jumps out the window, and he forgets he's on the second floor, and he breaks his ankle. And he says, "God dandruff, some of it itches. And he's like itching his head. He's like, dang it, I broke my ankle again.
This is not the first time.
No, he's got the worst ankles in the 3rd grade.
That's what he's known for?
Yeah, so he's
in the yearbook for that one?
Yeah. So he gets up and brushes his pants off and brushes his arms off. And he's looking down his leg. He's like, he shakes his leg and his foot just flops around because it's so broken. But he doesn't feel pain because, he doesn't have that.
Oh, that childhood trauma.
Yeah, it just kind of made him forget about life. And he starts running on one foot, hopping along, hopping all the way. It's getting dark out. He hears some noises out in the distance in the woods, and he hears like, and then and he's like, what in the tarnation's going on over here?
I'm wondering the same thing.
So he runs, and he's like, hop, 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 really fast. And he's going, and he gets to the edge of the woods, and he looks up at the tree, and he sees this giant gorilla. But it's got the claws of a werewolf. And he finds out that it's his mom, because she says, how was detention day, honey? Ooh, it's school today. And he goes, Mama, is that you? And she goes, you better believe it, son. And she spits on him. And he goes, ow, Mom, my eye. Why'd you spit on me, you jerk? She jumps down and she says, listen, I'm done taking your crap, kid. I'm going to Africa.
Why?
Because she's always wanted to go to Africa. She loves the music.
Okay.
It makes her dance more.
Is that a problem she's been having?
Oh, she has troubles,
Yeah. No kidding. None of them related to dancing, but
she's a very, sad woman. So she starts running away to Africa, and he says, no, you don't. And he pulls out his shoelace off of his broken foot, and he lassos her and grabs her by the neck with the shoelace, which is really violent for a children's book.
Is this a children's book now?
Yeah, semi. So
okay.
He says, you come here, woman. And she says, don't you call me woman ever again. I'm not a woman. I'm a gorilla werewolf mom. And I ate my bananas today, and I'm not taking no crap from nobody. And he says, yeah, well, you're going to take this. And he goes and poops in his pants. And he sticks his hand in his pants.
No.
And you better dang believe it. He throws that poop right at his mom and says, take this crap, Mom. And she went nuts. Because he forgot that they were in his pocket. So she ran and grabbed the nuts. and she opened the bag of nuts, and she threw them right in his eyes. And he's actually allergic to nuts.
Why did he save him then?
Because he was going to give them to his cousin. They were hanging out that night. They were going to play they were going to play the Nintendo 64 because it's 1998.
That's right.
He starts having an allergic reaction, and her maternal instincts kick in. And she says, gosh darn it, my maternal instincts are kicking in. Why do I have these feelings in my bones that just make me want to take care of this child who's crazy? So she picks him up and runs to the hospital, because it's not too far. They live kind of in, Philadelphia. There's some hospitals there. It's a city.
At least one or two, yeah.
At least. So she runs and she throws him at the glass doors, and he hits the doors and he slides to the ground, and she just says, there, that ought to do it. And she walks away.
Did it do it?
I mean, I guess we find out later. So what happened was she starts going away. She's like, how am I going to get to Africa like this? No one's going to let me on an airplane. I'm going to have to take a boat. I'm going to have to pretend I'm a hairy sailor man. And
So this is her story now?
Oh, it gets different, you'll see.
All right.
So she goes, jumps on a boat and says, listen, I'm a hairy sailor man. I need to work. And I want to go to Africa. And he says, if you want to go to Africa, you can work with us. You got to move the barrels every day. She said, whatever it takes, I'm going to Africa. I want to listen to the music and drink some coffee.
Two things I know Africa for.
And it turns out that the son wasn't doing so well, as you can guess, because his foot's dangling.
Yeah.
He's been thrown into a glass sliding door at the hospital. But thankfully, some nurses came, put him on a stretcher, brought him into the room, and they thought he was dead because they couldn't feel his pulse because, the allergic reaction made him really fat. So he was all puffy.
I see.
They felt his pulse. They couldn't feel anything. And so they start slapping him, Start slapping
as proper procedure goes.
And they start doing the clear,
defibrillator.
Clear, the defibrillator. It's just
wasn't working.
Sad story. So they take a knife and they cut him open and they say, let's find out what's wrong with him.
Did they do that before? Wait,
Well,
they cut him open and then said, let's find out what's wrong
Well,
with
it's 1998. The hospital practices were really, really archaic.
him. In 1998.
Yeah, you better believe it.
Okay.
So anyways, like I says, they were cutting him open and they found a little mouse inside of him.
How did that get in there?
I don't know, but it was there.
Okay.
I can't answer that question. This is this kid. I don't know. Maybe that's where the voices came from.
Oh, I
No.
see.
So they take the mouse, and he's alive. The mouse is alive. It was living inside of his, like, in between his skin, his bones, just kind of crawling around in there.
So in his body.
In his body. And maybe that's what made him such a bad boy. Maybe the mouse is what did it. We don't really know, because that's
What do you
too
mean we don't
scientific
really
for
know?
1998. They couldn't report on it. They just let the mouse go away.
Oh, so they found it and thought, well, this isn't strange, and just let it
The
go.
mouse just ran away, and then the boy, he woke up.
Oh.
He was completely fine, except for his ankle, of course. So they
And being cut open.
So they said, "Oh no, this ankle's gone sour. We got to cut it off."
It's gone sour.
So they cut it off. They cut off his ankle and they put a robot foot there, and it was awesome.
Wait a second. For 1998, they had a robot foot, but they didn't realize
They had
that
the
a mouse
Nintendo
foot?
Power Glove. I mean, how could they not?
Oh, right.
So they put the foot on him. It had some pretty great features, as you can imagine.
That's-
It had an automatic other foot scratcher. So he's like, all right, I'm out of here. And so he goes and he says, I gotta find my... Oh, wait, she said she's going to Africa. He says, I should get to Africa. They won't let me on a plane, though, because I got this robotic foot. This robotic...
Romantic foot?
It's yeah, that's the term, actually. That's the brand, Romatic.
Okay.
They went out of business real quick because turns out it rusts really bad. He says, how do I get to Africa to find my mom so that she can make me dinner? He went to NASA and he said, listen, I can't take a plane, but I want to go to Africa. And they said, do you have any volunteer scientific projects where I can fly to Africa? And they said, yeah, we actually are just starting this new thing where we shoot people out of cannons and see if we can make it to Africa or if we're going to hit the water.
You know, I just want to point out, NASA got someone on the moon in like 1969, and now they're shooting people out of cannons in 1998 to try and get them to Africa. Just want to say NASA's progressing really nicely.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, you got to do what you got to do. So he says, I'm down. I'm your man. I'm the one. So they shot him out of the cannon the next day.
That was the one test.
All he had to do was sign like 3 papers and he was all set. Of course, he puts the helmet on, he gets in the cannon, they shoot, and he goes, and he flies, and it takes a while to fly to Africa. And finally, he lands about 20 feet off the coast of Africa, and he hears on his radio, sorry, we're going to have to try that again. You have to swim back. We'll try again tomorrow. So he's like, farts. And he says, I'm not listening to them. This is stupid. He gets onto the beach. He swims onto the beach. He goes, weird, I've never been to Africa before. This is such a different place. And these guys come over, and they say, hello, what do you want to do? And he says, wow.
I remember when I went to Africa, and people just asked me, what do I want to do?
Yeah. He said, I don't know, I want to find my mom. And they said, oh, you mean the white woman who came here last week on the boat? And he says, wow, that was easy. And because, there's not, in this section of Africa, there's not many white people. So they just kind of assumed they were the racist ones. They were just assuming because they were both white that that was his mom. When they were right.
I mean, they weren't wrong.
They weren't wrong. He goes and finds his mom, and she's sitting on a throne of skulls. She's sipping on a small coffee, listening to music. And she looks normal again because the whole werewolf gorilla thing wore off.
All right.
And he says, hey, Mom, I need you to come home and make me dinner. I'm real hungry. And she says, why don't you say please and see what happens? And he says, Mom, will you please make me dinner? I'm real hungry. And she says, okay, honey. And they go home. She makes him dinner, tucks him in. The end.
Oh, all right. I guess... Now, real quick, I just want to make one thing clear. When you said features, was that an intentional joke?
Perhaps. I guess we'll never know.